Waterville City Council. Well, special meeting.
Special.
Agendas are available in the file pockets or near the entrance or online on the City of Waterville's website. All items appearing on consent agenda are voted on in one motion and vote. Generally, these items are routine in nature and do not require discussion. All items listed under unfinished business or new business are voted on separately. First, councilors will be given an opportunity for questions or comments. Once councilors have had an opportunity to speak, citizens will be given an opportunity for questions or comments. Citizens must identify themselves. Each citizen will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak. Finally, councilors will be given another opportunity to speak or comment. Citizens who would like to speak on a topic that does not appear on tonight's agenda will have an opportunity to do so during the public comment section of the meeting. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Disclosure of conflict of interest. Seeing none. Manager's report.
Not sure if the mics are working or not.
Hello.
Nope.
Well,
Yeah, but the people online can't.
Check.
How about now?
that works.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so you do have my written report, and it is posted on the city's website as well. I just wanted to highlight a couple of items. First of all, we have received the International Chiefs of Police Organization and Operation Review Report. Chief Bonnie and I have reviewed that, and we have sent it on to the entire police department for them to review. I'm going to be reviewing that with them at their department meeting next week, I believe it is. I will have copies. If we did not have an internet failure at City Hall tonight, I would have had copies for the council tonight. But the plan will be to have a presentation. I'll present the report to the council probably your August 1st meeting. And then Chief Bonnie will be here as well, so we can respond to some of the recommendations that are in that. But I want to get it to the council in written form first, so you can have a chance to review it, take a look at it. I will say that many of the recommendations that are in the report either were already completed by Chief Bonnie or are underway, which is a good thing. So really no surprises in that report, which is a good thing. As we've talked about before and through the budget process, some of those recommendations was to eliminate the deputy chief position and create a major position in place of that, and then the lieutenant position that we didn't fill, make that another major position so that we had a chief and two majors, one in charge of basically operations, one in charge of administration training, Operation Hope, that type of thing. So we've implemented those changes. And Sergeant Joshua Woods was promoted to the rank of Major. Major Woods was hired by Waterville PD in 2007, promoted to Detective in 2013, and Sergeant in 2017. He also graduated from Husson University. Pleased to have Major Woods here tonight, as a matter of fact, sitting in. Sergeant Jason Longley was promoted to the rank of Major as well. He started with WPD in 2011, promoted to Detective in 2014, and Sergeant in 2016. He's a graduate of Franklin Pierce University. Both of those individuals were sergeants, so we promoted Officer Casey Fabian to the rank of Patrol Sergeant. He started with Waterville PD in 2015 and is a graduate from Thomas College. Officer Cody Vigue was promoted to the rank of Patrol Sergeant. He was hired by WPD in 2014 and also graduated from Thomas College. So we've certainly started to fill those leadership roles from within the department, which is certainly beneficial for everyone involved. It's nice to have that new leadership structure in place. With the promotions and some upcoming retirements, we will have 7 patrol vacancies now. We were down to a few, but now with promotions we've gone back up. But we do have 5 candidates that are in process of being hired to fill those vacancies. With some experienced veterans as well. So that's all good news as far as I'm concerned. The other item that is not in my written report that I wanted to provide an update on, a couple of them. I handed out to the council a memorandum about the ARPA funding. So with the completion and approval of the budget at your last meeting for FY24, the total opera funds that we've received on behalf of the city are 1.75 million and some change. To date, we've expended or committed $947,000 of those funds. Assuming that the council approves the transfer tonight that's on your agenda from the unused ARPA funds in the FY23 budget back to the ARPA account, we'll have approximately $803,700 left of ARPA funds that have not been committed or spent. Just a reminder that the funds must be committed by December 31st of 2024 and spent by December 31st of 2026. So we still have plenty of time to be able to consider what needs to be done or should be done with these funds. But I wanted to get that information in front of you as well. And again, that's contingent upon the funds being transferred from FY23 back into the ARPA account that weren't used. The last thing I wanted to update the council on that's not in the written report is that I have signed a contract with a company to redesign our website. So that work will begin. We're probably looking at 26, 27 weeks for that process to take place. The first thing that we need to do is clean up our current website and the things that you don't see from a public standpoint, all of the back-end stuff that's old information that's there that we don't want to transfer to the new site. So IT is working with that along with the administration office and all of the departments, frankly. So that will be an ongoing effort over the next several months. Hopefully at your next meeting, I will be announcing our notification system that we'll put in place. I expect to make a decision on that probably early next week. That also was included in the FY24 budget. We've, with administration and IT, reviewed many different companies, and I think we found a good solution going forward for that, and that's going to really provide some excellent ability for the city to communicate with our residents going forward. And I'll have plenty of more information about that as we move forward. I would expect that that'll be hopefully implemented within, meaning up and running within 9 to 10 weeks from now. So that's the goal.
It is now. Council committees? Go ahead.
So I just wanted to say that the Housing Committee met on June 28th, and we reviewed the progress we've made so far. We last reported to the council in October of 22, and so we took this opportunity to review where we are in our various goals, especially with the community development officer coming on board. And we identified two priorities for the next few months. One being policies to support low-income residents who continue to be, to suffer from the crunch, the housing crisis that we have. And then also to try to encourage more home ownership through various means. So those are the two directions we're looking at in the next few months. And we also got a really interesting update on projects in progress with the help of our planner, Ann Beveridge. And it looks like we have at least on the books in various stages of development almost 500 units. And these are single-family homes, 80% AMI, 65% and market rate. So it was encouraging to see these projects starting to take shape. Of course, there's a long way to go for many of them, but it is good news. So I just wanted to share that tonight. And our next meeting will be June 19th. Sorry, thank you, July
Next year?
19th.
Done. See you guys.
So that's 2 weeks from today. We will be meeting in the Roy Room and by Zoom, if anyone wants to join us.
Anyone else? Go
Okay,
ahead.
first of all, I wanted to just report a little bit on the Climate Resiliency Committee. We met today, and we finalized plans for the Maine State Community Action Grant that we're submitting on behalf of the city. We're looking to secure funding for an EV vehicle for the community resource officer that Councilor Green talked about, along with a charging station that will live at the police station. The grant is for $50,000. That will be approximately $40,000 of our ask. And then the remainder of the ask was for climate forward landscaping, climate forward and climate resilient landscaping that will dovetail with some of the planning that was revealed on the 29th for both Temple and Spring Streets. So $10,000 in that kind of thing. Hopefully that goes through. We also then discussed a potential the next round of that, and ways to look to double up on our money, to more than double up on the money available in the grant by partnering with surrounding communities. We had an interesting discussion about that, and ways to spend that money, potentially for forming a climate resiliency plan along with some kind of consultancy. We had discussions about, I introduced this Renew America Schools grant that is offered through the federal government to be able to, the program is designed for HVAC and air filtration systems. So we're thinking about not only sustainability in the schools, but climate temperature resiliency, heat resiliency, and also air filtration for the almost certain advent of poor air quality that is likely to be coming our way. So that's what's happening there. We had some other discussions, but those are the important ones. And then as a counselor comment, our next meeting, thanks for modeling that for me, is on August 7th in the Roy Room at 4. And counselor comments. So this coming week, the brown-tailed moth is currently, the caterpillars are in pupation. They're in cocoons, waiting to emerge as a moth. They will emerge in the coming week, probably within the next 7 days. When that happens, that's the one time in their life cycle that the moths are migratory, right? They've been spending 11 months on the same tree, either as eggs or as larvae, et cetera. But this is the month that they move around and seek new food sources. It's a critical point in their life cycle. One of the things the city, so I've been working with a number of groups, coordinating efforts on behalf of the city to find low and no cost ways of mitigating infestation in the city, particularly one of them during this part in their life cycle. So it is our belief that, based on previous research, that the moth is attracted to lights when it's, when they're most active as adults, between the hours of like 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So that the useful bit for the community here, two things, is number one, on your private property, if you can limit the amount of external lighting during that time window, particularly lighting that's within 60 feet, a 60-foot proximity to a food source. So that's any kind of deciduous plant, any kind of deciduous tree, particularly oaks and apples and palm fruits. Then that makes your property less appealing. If you don't want to do that, then installing lights that are more red shifted rather than blue shifted, like the bright white LEDs, shifting towards more red toned LEDs. Think like the old school sodium vapor lights, like that shade of light is less appealing to the moths. So that's for the public, and then, or private citizens. The city itself, we're deploying 3 light traps in 3 each per 4 parks throughout the city. That will be Head of Falls, North Street Park, Veterans Memorial Park, and at Quarry Road, in tandem with a test of light limitation at those sites. And so there will be there'll be about a meter square white light traps for the moths that will be in these places. We strongly urge residents to not mess with them, don't play with them, don't go up to them, certainly don't move them around. They're meant to attract brown-tail moths. You don't want to be getting into them. Just leave them alone. They will be signed, but they'll be there just for about 3 weeks so we can assess the effectiveness of the measures that we're taking. If you're on the city's brown-tail moth email list, I'll be sending out all of this information in the email for the public. Maybe I can get the newspaper to put a little thing in there as well. But just wanted to make sure that the public understands what's happening and what they can do to protect their property.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comments? Go right ahead.
Microphone.
Yeah, no, now you got to rock, paper, scissors for it. I mean, that's just how that goes.
Well, hello, I'm Derek DeFelice, the owner of Heroes on Wheels, the food truck that we were operating on Johnson Heights and North Street. This spring, we applied for a permit through the town, and we did everything, all the necessary steps. We had all the permits signed off, we paid the fees, everything was approved on it to operate in that location. When we applied for the permit, I knew zoning was in question, and when they did approve of the permit, I was pretty stoked about it and happy. We spent our money on advertising. We put a lot of funds into that to get the location going. We got the location going, and about 3 weeks ago, code enforcement shut us down. They pulled our permit in the town, and they said that due to zoning, we're not allowed to operate there. They did offer us, which I do appreciate the town doing this, they did offer us to go 50 feet across the street and set up over there and pay the fees over there up to $1,500. Well, I've lost enough money now where it's not even in the budget to go do that. I'm going to take the business elsewhere. And we have a lot of opportunities, but we were really hoping to bring our truck into the town of Waterville. And over the spring, it was very successful. And we're getting a lot of comments on Facebook and a lot of stuff going around wondering why we're not there anymore. And we've kept it very private because I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus on it, on what happened. But the problem is the town approved it, they gave us the permit, we paid the fees, we did everything that was right that we were supposed to do, and then they pull a permit from us and left us hanging. I don't think that's right. I mean, if it's not, the zoning and all that stuff that they did is we shouldn't be doing that, that's fine, but they should honor the permit for the remainder of the season and let us finish our season, and then we'll go to plan B for next year. But in the middle of the season now, our business has lost almost $15,000 in the last 3 weeks. It's pretty hard to recover from that. We're going around to different towns, and we don't have any issues in any other town. Permit-wise, zoning-wise, we never had an issue. This is the only spot that we're having an issue. And it hurts to have to go literally 50 feet from where I'm parked to go across the street to satisfy everybody. I'd like to come to it'd be nice to be able to continue operating the rest of the season, and then we can figure out another course for next year. I think that'd be the right thing to do. I guess it's in everybody
Would you
else's
move
hands.
the other 50 feet next year?
Huh?
Would you move the other 50 feet next year?
If it continues being successful in the location that we're at, I would happily pay the fee next year and continue through. But this to us was a trial run to see if this location would even work. It did work. It worked great in the spring. It had its ups and its downs, and we're a mobile unit. We don't stay in one spot. Every single day we're in a different spot, from all the way down in Sanford all the way up to Presque Isle. We're going all over the place, but we try to hit Waterville once or twice a week, and we will bring in a lot of people in. We had the hospital coming over, and we would do that. And I talked to my partner, and I says, you know, if it doesn't work out in this location and they make us move, then if this is successful, I'll happily pay the fee to the town and the Parks and Rec and do that next year. But in the middle of the season, to yank that permit from us is not right. And that's what I got to say on that.
So can't we just fix
Yeah.
this and give his permit back for the rest of the year?
Yes. Well, that's not a decision for me necessarily to make, but I would like to apologize to Mr. DeFelice. I mean, this happened through our office.
Yep.
We recognized the problem. It was brought to our attention by someone else who wanted to operate in a residential zone. And we denied them and realized at that time that permit was issued incorrectly. Administering the business license ordinance is tricky at best, and the staff believed that because it wasn't strictly prohibited in the licensing and permits ordinance, that it would be allowed in the residential zone, and it only came to our attention through that other gentleman raising the issue. So when we realized the issue, we thought that in fairness to the person that was being denied operating in the residential zone, that we asked Code to go speak with you about it.
Yep.
And so Code Enforcement spoke with you, and my understanding was they offered the location across the street on North Street, which
Yep.
that zone is allowed. It's an institutional zone, and mobile food vendors are allowed there. So we thought that it was adequately resolved. So this is the first that I'm hearing that there's still
I
ongoing
thought it was
issues.
resolved and everything like that until I got the, but we do still need to charge you a fee to be here. And you're
Oh.
looking at the fees, and the fee, it goes from July 1st, I think, into September 1st or something
Right.
like that. And I
Right.
mean, $1,000 to $1,500 is just a little bit out of your budget when you've lost 15 grand already.
Right, I understand.
And I understand everybody makes mistakes. It was an overlook by the town. I understand that. I'm not mad. I knew that from the get-go that the zoning could be in question, and we were stoked about it being approved.
Yeah.
It's the point halfway through the season that the permit gets yanked.
Right.
That's not right.
Right.
Let us finish our season, and then next year we'll go to Plan B.
So I understand your issue. So that's not under my authority to be able to do that. So that's certainly something that the council could consider. There are a few options, and one would be
What
to.
is our option right now so that he can operate tomorrow?
Well, he is operating, but he's
I'm
I
not
think
operating in
asking.
Waterville.
Okay, so I think you're asking a couple of things. First, there's one option to continue allowing him to operate at his property on Johnson Heights, which is in a residential zone.
Yeah.
The second option would be to waive the fee for the North Street site. Is that a second option that would be
That would be a great
amenable?
option.
Yep.
And I also did offer to Parks and Rec when I did email them that initially I thought the fee was going to be waived, and that's why I was pretty stoked about it. And I did offer, hey, maybe we can do a benefit for the Parks and Rec. We can, do something where we can give back to them.
Yeah.
But to pay the fee to be there, I mean,
Right.
we're not ones that set up 5 days a week in Waterville.
Right.
We're once a week, every other week. It's rarely, and to pay that much money to operate maybe 6 or 7 times of the season because September is where we would use that location more. Once all of our summer events slow down. But to pay that fee to be there 6 or 7 times, it doesn't make sense to me.
Right. So
So-
I would defer to,
What do we do? Waive cloture or something? Add something to the agenda?
well, let me think about this uno momento.
Okay.
So we can circle, so if you want to think about it while we
Circle back
continue,
to
we
it.
can circle
Yeah.
back to the end.
We'll get you going.
We got a
Yeah,
few,
this is just
Sounds great.
comments.
So is there a preference for you, sir? Which would you prefer?
I don't care which location.
Honestly,
Okay.
it'd be easier to have you move simply So
Yeah.
no one
The
comes
50
back
feet,
and
yeah.
complains about that
Yep.
spot.
And like I said,
no
I have
zoning
no
issue.
problem paying that fee, but let me finish my season out that I was
Yeah,
already
I
permitted
agree.
for.
This year,
I agree.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You've already paid.
Right.
So yes, at a certain point, we could waive cloture and consider a resolution to do whichever option,
Yep.
and that would work.
Okay. All right. We can work on
So
that.
do we need to wait?
Do you
Yeah,
want,
'cause
you
we're
can
in
do
the
that
public
now,
section, yeah.
if you'd like.
This is
Once we
just
get to
comments.
the business.
Should we wait till we get to the meeting and not the public comment part?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
Probably.
the backside of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Yep. Perfect.
More public comments?
Thank you.
Still no rock, paper, scissors, but.
Do it after.
So I'm the other food truck. I was operating off my license. Oh, my name's Aaron Began. I'm the owner of I'd Wrap That Food Truck in Waterville.
Okay.
I was operating off of my mother-in-law's property, running off of my last year's town, or whatever, that says I can work in the town.
Yep.
I was like 3 weeks away from it running up. I was planning on renewing it then and going through all this. 2 weeks into me starting selling there, code enforcement came and shut me down. All the research I've done, I believe I'm legally allowed to go there. Between the food sovereignty and all the other things that I have documents for right here, if anybody would like to look at them. The ordinance, the only thing that the guys told me that is the reason why is that I'm not listed as approved under, oops, wrong one. Under medium density 5.2 residential district. Where is it? Under approved things, all it lists is a daycare center is allowed to be worked out of a home. But I believe that the food sovereignty that was passed a few years back allows me to sell food off of my property. And I mean, it could be misinterpreted on my behalf, but I also, when I've talked to code enforcement, they pretty much just kind of shooed me along and told me nothing.
So, I'll be honest with you. I know the code. I know that ordinance because I helped write it.
Yes, I messaged you on the weekend and you
Yep.
responded rather quickly.
So what I'll tell you is that food sovereignty was meant not for a business to be able to open in their house, but so that people could make food in their homes and sell it to their neighbors.
I am
Key
selling
is
to my neighbors.
it has to
though.
be made in the home, not in the truck.
But so if I had built all that stuff on an addition to my home, it would have been the same thing. If I connect my trailer to my house, am I allowed to do that?
So maybe, but the key was so that people have to go to your home to buy that food. Like you couldn't deliver it, you couldn't do anything. They physically were supposed to come to your property to buy it. I
So
get
they
that
are
the truck-
physically coming to my property and
that.
buying it. I could even start selling it through my
But-
front door if that's
but
what you really
the
would
other
prefer.
part of food sovereignty was never meant to allow people to skirt guidelines when it came to commercial use.
Okay.
So you're looking at it as a business, and I have no issue with people selling food. I want you to sell as much food as you can, but it has to be done. Like it was never meant to circumvent health guidelines or the Department of Agriculture guidelines. It is if you're in your house, you want to bake lasagna for people, or you want to make cookies, but if you're in there day in and day out trying to essentially run a restaurant out of your house.
But again, I'm kind of in the same situation as him, where I'm using it only very few times, like 2-3 days a week, and then I go do other things.
That's why the city that's why the city has spots that you can rent throughout
So
the city.
I was forced to rent a spot from the city, and it's not working out good. It's not a good spot.
Where are you?
I'm over at Head of Falls. I paid $1,500 there when I was forced to move from location, and it's not an overly good spot. I thought that maybe with the traffic from Colby and the businesses in the area, hey, maybe it would turn out better. I'm making less money there.
Do you
than I
have a
am-
better spot in mind?
No, because even on KMD, I parked on KMD last year, had to pay $500 a month for rent, and I just as much business as at my house. Granted, last year kind of got me out and let people see me
Yep.
on KMD, but yeah, I don't know.
Where's your address?
114 Western Avenue. I have a map of the address if you want. And the other thing that was brought up was traffic. I'm right across from the Waterville football field, and that brings in way more traffic than my food truck ever does. Like on football days, both both sides of the road are filled with traffic. You can only get one car going down. I don't even think that's safe.
Are they
But-
residential B? What are they on Western Ave right there?
We're a medium residential.
I think it's
So-
RB.
Yeah.
RB? So RB allows you to have a home business, but only up to 25% of the property. How does that work?
So-
Or is it 15%? I know, because I looked at moving my business to my garage.
So
I think there are a lot of questions raised here, but that we can't really answer tonight. And I think we'd need to ask the city attorney for his opinion. So, I mean, I think it's great that you raised it, but maybe we need to, maybe you need to talk about either, applying for, I just think we need more time to consider your request and to look at what the legal
Because-
implications
but
are
just
and the
like
zoning
in this situation,
implications.
it's costing me money every day that I'm not there. I'm running my
if
generator
I may-
instead of running power out of my house,
But
which is costing wear and tear on my generator. More gas costs more to put gas in my generator than it does for me to run electricity from my house.
But this is a consistent, I mean, we're gonna look at, changing, allowing this other, food truck to operate, but not in a residential zone. So you're asking for something that we've said, no, we're not gonna do that. So I just
But-
think it's a different question.
I understand that you said no. I totally get that. And I understand what you say about the food sovereignty, what it was meant for. But the way everything is worded still leads me to believe that I could sell food off my property, especially due to the size of my property. I do have a large spot, so even if it was 15, 25%, I'm much smaller than that percentage.
Again, so long as you were doing it in the house, I don't think anybody would say anything to you. It's the food truck, it's a business.
But-
I can't park an RV outside of my house for long term and call it an Airbnb. It just doesn't work.
But again, I could get a commercial kitchen built onto my house.
Absolutely, it'd be part of your
But
house.
it would be the same thing. So if I literally pull my truck up and then attach it to my house, would that be okay?
It depends if you're allowed to put up an auxiliary structure on your property.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may,
Go ahead.
we're looking at making some changes to the licenses and permits ordinance. And one of those changes would be to clarify where mobile food trucks can be. The current ordinance specifically excludes the congested business area, for example, and defines where that is. But it doesn't specifically exclude other areas. You have to pick and hunt and peck through the zoning ordinance, which we're not experts in zoning in our office. So we wanted to clarify where those locations could be. And I think that would answer this question and add some clarity, that we could specifically say that it's not allowed in, for example, RA, because that's a low-density residential, or it's not allowed in, I don't know, RB, if that's how the council wishes to pursue this. But perhaps it could be allowed in RR, which is rural residential, say the West River Road or 8 Rod Road. Maybe it's not as restrictive out there because the lots are bigger. So this is probably a larger conversation that probably should be had through the public comment section. I mean, it's a perfect opportunity to raise the issue, obviously.
Right.
But to solve the issue, I think is more than we can do in a quick. So I'm happy to,
Understood.
get together with you and Mr. Del Judas, and we can, kind of talk through it, and maybe when we propose those ordinance changes, that would be appropriate. I will point out, though, that your license was issued on Kennedy Memorial
No,
Drive.
I said that at
Right,
the beginning, that
right.
like I was running off my last year's
Right.
license. Yes,
And-
I
and
wasn't.
it
I
moved
was
to the
planning on moving
residential.
it with as soon as it ran
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
That
So-
was my fault.
Right.
Not
It's
trying to
okay.
do,
It's just,
you know.
now that it's brought to light, now we're
Right.
trying to deal with it,
And honestly, if
obviously.
you parked it in the living room, I don't think anybody would say anything to you. If it's
okay.
attached to the house, I'd have to. Food sovereignty was meant to make it easier for people to share food that they grew, that they curated and took care of themselves, to share with their neighbors without government getting involved. I will be nervous about doing it that way if it's not attached to your house. Simply because that wasn't the spirit of that ordinance.
So, if I may also, one thing here is that, if we take this kind of piecemeal approach where we try to reconcile an issue for one person with, in some sort of gray area, that can open up a conflict with another person. And really what needs to happen here is, as the city clerk says, we need some clarity in terms of the legal semantics. And we're talking about legal semantics in an area that is like not immediately obvious to all of us. As Councilor Green said, we do have a solicitor whose specific job is digging through all of that and understanding not just how we can resolve your issue, but how it opens, what the ramifications are for the city in terms of our liability broadly. Right?
Okay.
And making sure that we have some kind of thing where if we solve your problem, we don't have some other person coming to us that we've opened up a conflict that we didn't anticipate, and we have to deal with another issue down the road with that as well. So I think, we have the plan here. I would simply, in support of this gentleman, ask that it be followed up in as timely a manner as possible, because it certainly impacts his business. I think that's what we can do for you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate you guys very much. I do.
Anyone else from the public? And do we have anybody online?
No.
Check online.
Hi guys, my name's Bobby. I'm the third guy out here. Patty and Rebecca, I feel bad for you guys. I feel like we kind of sideswiped you guys on this whole thing, but this is our first time. I've never been to one of these meetings. Have you guys? So we don't really know the best way to approach. But I feel like you're getting a decent demographic of the food trailer business in the city of Waterville right now. Okay, you've got 3 food trailers. 2 of them have issues. That should at least indicate that there's some clarification that needs to happen. Something needs to give. Me, I really don't have a ton of issues. I would like to bring up possibly the city looking into a food trailer park. I think that would solve a lot of problems. It would give the food trailers a place to go. The more food trailers, the more business the city of Waterville is going to have. We're an up-and-coming city. I mean, I'm telling you, we've got the college, we've got all of these wonderful things happening in the city of Waterville. I see it every day. It's growing. It's great. Your food trailer industry could really enhance that. We bring unique food. We bring a whole bunch of uniqueness to this town. And we would bring in tourists. We would bring in just a whole bunch of really great things. Yeah.
I apologize if you said it. Which truck are you affiliated with?
I am with the Cone Zone. I start next week. I'm so excited.
Okay.
Yeah, right on College Avenue. Right at, it's a nice little traffic area.
Absolutely.
Hey, we want to sling. No, I came from a different town. I just wanted to come into the Waterville City Council and totally joking. I live right off of High Street. But what's happening and what you're seeing here, all right, Heroes on Wheels, veteran by the way, he is not able to operate in the town of Waterville. Who does that ultimately hurt? Waterville. But it doesn't hurt Waterville, but it doesn't help. All right, you're losing business, and you're losing that uniqueness that Waterville is using as a foundation to build on. And I think a food trailer park would be wonderful, and the city doesn't have to pay for it. The city just has to find a spot for us, and we will pay rent, and they will make profit. And Rebecca, right?
Yes. So I think that's a great idea. And actually, I'm kind of surprised. I was surprised to hear that there were only 2 food trucks at Head of Falls. And yet I hear that one of the trucks that's there is not doing so great. So, I mean, I think, again, this is a great thing to think about, and it would make a lot of sense, because then, you know, it would be, you know, it would draw more people if there were more trucks, presumably.
Exactly.
So,
Kind of that one-stop shop kind of thing. Okay.
but I do think we need to look at, you know, need to look at this issue holistically and look
Absolutely.
at zoning too, and
Well, and like I said, I feel bad. I feel like we sideblinded you guys.
No, it's fine.
I'm talking about
no, that's why we're here.
But also, none of us knew how to put ourselves on the docket. And which, by the way, when this all ends today, I'm going to talk to one of you guys and figure that out.
Yeah.
Because I plan to be a common occurrence at these places. So,
In general, if you're a Waterville resident, the right way is to reach out to your counselor for your ward. And that way you have you can build.
who's that?
That would be me.
I guess it's
Hi.
him.
Well, it depends what side of High Street, I guess, right?
Yeah.
True.
Find out who your counselor is. That way you have a specific advocate who is working with you to integrate you into that, to like hear your concerns and carry those concerns forward to the correct parties.
Sounds great. And this is the first step. This is what we knew we could do.
Yeah. Well, here you are. It's great.
Yep.
Okay.
Hi. So anyway, I'd like to throw that idea out and possibly let the city kind of mull it over. I will be to every one of these meetings that I can make it to now, so I can follow up on it as many times as needed. And that's probably more than my 3 minutes. So I will talk to you, though, a little bit later.
Anybody online?
Sir.
Anybody up?
Could I just reiterate kind of what he's saying and what I know would work? Real quick?
Okay. And then I'm cutting everybody off. No, I'm just
Okay, I'm back again. Going back on the food truck park thing, it is something that I can tell you might work. I go down to Westbrook probably every other week. On a Wednesday night, they do a food truck park at the Bridge Street Food Eats. They advertise it, Parks and Rec advertise it very heavily. Do they charge us? No. There is no fee to go there. We do make a donation to the baseball team. $10, $25, blah, blah, blah. But the town advertises it, and I swear they bring in 5,000 to 6,000 people down there. And they'll bring in 10 food trucks. Now, if you do a food truck park every single night of the week, nobody's going to make money. But they do it once a week, every Wednesday from, I think it's 4 to 8. And I was very skeptical this spring when I signed up for it. They begged me to come, and I'm like, a food truck park? Ain't nobody going to make money. First time I went down there was 10 food trucks. We made money. It was good. It worked out. It was a parking lot. That's all it is. If you go onto Facebook, you check it out, you can see their whole thing. The fee for the year to us to go down there, $175. I pay to the town of Westbrook to get our license. And I go down there as much as I want. Every Wednesday I go down, we make our money, we come back. Waterville did something like that, you'd benefit from it. But you can't, I don't see it working 7 days a week. It'd have to be like a one-day thing where the whole town gets involved, everybody gets excited about it, you bring them in. So that's just a little insight on something I know that works in a different city. So, thank you.
thank you. You know, for a lot of food trucks, nobody brought food. We're just pointing that out right now. Just want to make sure everybody else saw it. Want to make sure.
Was working down there with the food, with the farmers market area.
Will you?
Be
A lot of good discussions.
Yeah.
no, if we do like
During
what he's
events.
talking about, say on Wednesday night, whenever, have that where they hold
every
every farmers markets
We
on
got 4
Thursday.
Fridays.
So
We got,
nobody online?
Concerts down there, like line them up.
With that,
All right.
You know,
because you have the parking on the other side.
if I could just clarify, this has morphed over time, and we were trying to be proactive
Yep.
with Head of Falls to set up a couple spots for food trucks because they weren't allowed there. So we thought we were kind of getting ahead of the curve by allowing 2 food trucks to be down there and make it a seasonal
Yep.
event.
It's been new for this.
So-
This is all new for.
It's all new,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you have to keep in mind, Waterville's only 12 square miles, so there's not a lot of space to set up things like this, but, you know, it's definitely an evolving entity, and, you know, we obviously are, still behind the curve, even though we tried to be ahead of it. So certainly,
I like it,
this
yeah.
this needs a larger conversation, and
Yep,
we'll loop
agreed.
in the stakeholders in the room, and maybe a couple of counselors, and we can
I'd
maybe
love to
work
be
through
on
it.
that.
I'm going to move to the consent agenda.
Move to adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
We have to do a roll call. Oh, no,
we
we
don't.
don't, sorry.
No, she's not here. No roll call, right? You're messing me up.
Is Flavia online?
Flavia is not online.
Okay,
No,
yeah,
she's
well, there
not.
we go.
Is there a motion to read the items by title only?
Yes, ma'am. Second.
All in favor? Gilly.
Yes.
All right. New business?
Resolution 116,
116, 2023.
approved transfer of unused FY23 ARPA funds to ARPA account.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And that's putting the money back that we didn't use.
Yes, basically, this is just, as it says in the background information, the money that was not used for those 4 positions in the FY23 budget. If we don't make the transfer back to the ARPA account, then those would roll into the general fund, which is not what we want to do.
No. All in favor? Ordinance 117, 2023.
Amend the public safety ordinance.
Details? Oh,
We need to move it.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Thank you.
So I will turn this over to Chief Essler to describe for the council and those that are listening and watching. But I do also want to state that there was a request from a councilor to have a public hearing about this topic. So if the council wishes, I would suggest we have that before your next meeting at 6:30.
Okay.
If there's any public comments, and then that way that's covered. So we will advertise that, and I'll turn it over to Chief Essler.
Good evening, council. Can everybody hear me okay on this mic? Hello?
I don't think it's on.
How about now?
yep.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, council. A couple years ago, the city formed a fire department committee to look at ways that the fire department could essentially help streamline economic development and generate some revenue. Over the last few years, we've engaged in a permitting process, and it's been very successful. But one of the concerns that we've had is any contractor or developer that comes to Waterville that wants to build, let's say, apartments or start a commercial business or whatnot. In order to build in Waterville, the plans need to go to the fire marshal's office and be reviewed. During COVID, because of some of the funding that was available to businesses, there was a lot of development that spurred. And the fire marshal's office has limited on the staff that they have available to conduct these reviews. So that led developers here in town with extended wait periods. So essentially, they would develop a project, they would send that project to the fire marshal's office here in the state of Maine, and that project could take 8 to 12 weeks to be approved, or whether there was any revisions or whatnot. And that wasn't because the fire marshal's office did a bad job. It was because they didn't have the staff to effectively handle it. So here at the fire department, we partnered with code enforcement and started essentially doing our own plans reviews in-house. And we learned of a law called Review of Municipal Development, where the fire department could take on the responsibility of the fire marshal's office to essentially streamline that permitting process. So moving forward, the fire department will act as the fire marshal's office under what's called delegated review. And if a project lands in our lap tomorrow, we'll review that project. Our goal is 2 weeks, 2 weeks' time, and that project will have the same approval from our fire department and code enforcement division as it would be coming from the state of Maine. There are a couple exceptions to that, one being DHHS projects or daycares. We want the fire marshal's office to maintain jurisdiction over both of those because they have a separate permitting process. So, to summarize, the public safety ordinance was changed and drafted to accommodate the fire department conducting what's informally known as delegated review. So once this ordinance that's in front of us is approved by the council, we'll then send it off to the State Fire Marshal's office and the Commissioner of Public Safety, and they'll sign off, and they've already advised us that they'll approve us to do that. They evaluate our capacity, they evaluate the laws or the ordinances we have in place to allow this to be done, and they obviously require us to have specialized training, which we do. And I had come to council, Bill and I had come to council to request your support a while back, and I reported to the fire marshal's office. You know, they may kick back a little bit on it, and I'm pleased to report that the state fire marshal has given us unconditional support here. So I don't anticipate any concerns at all. And then the last thing that I will add in the public safety ordinance. So again, a lot of the changes that you see in front of you in red are to handle the review of development, to handle the review of sprinkler and fire alarm systems here in the city. It provides the code enforcement officer with a little bit of the same authority that's given to the fire chief. And there's one emergency measure, and we can talk about more in depth at the public hearing, but it gives fire and code enforcement the ability to placard to help resolve an immediate circumstance that's dangerous to somebody's life. And Deputy Frost and Director Bradstreet and the code enforcement guys, we are finding some problems here in the city, and we're coming across some situations that are dangerous for people to be in. So we're asking for the authority to advise people that they shouldn't be in those conditions by placarding and making it not lawful to remain there. So that would be under the emergency measure and immediate danger. There are some bits of language in the ordinance that I have cut and pasted from other sections of our code or our ordinances so that the public safety ordinance becomes the one-stop shop. So for example, there's a section on sprinkler systems, fire alarm systems, key boxes, and height restrictions. Those are already in our existing code, I believe under our general performance standards. I just cut and pasted them and then dropped them into the public safety ordinance so that any member of the public can go to the public safety ordinance and see all items that pertain to fire prevention and life safety. That is about the best overview that I can provide, and I would recommend, the council approve the ordinance as written.
So, Patty, this requires 2 votes.
Yes.
So if they vote today, have the public meeting next week, at the next meeting, they can make a second vote if they need to, or we can move it along.
It requires 2 readings, yes.
Okay. Councilor Frankie.
Well, when you speak of the fire marshal, you're talking about the state fire marshal.
Yes, sir.
And you've indicated that they're okay with us taking on this responsibility.
They are.
And this has all been reviewed by the city attorney.
This has.
Well, my sense is that this is a very substantial change in our ordinance for our safety ordinance. And while there may not be that many people in the audience tonight, it may well be that once this becomes public knowledge, that there'll be interested parties that will want to have their voice heard at a public hearing. I frankly think that we're ahead of ourselves to vote on it tonight and then have the public hearing. It should be the other way around. I would suggest that we table it until we've had a public hearing.
I'd second that.
So is that a motion, sir?
Yes.
Okay, so if I may, Mayor, Chief Essler, what is the urgency, the time urgency? So, we're dealing with a question that relates to fundamental public safety, and the story that I'm getting from you is that the state fire marshal is not really able to manage they don't have the capacity for the demand here in Waterville. And thankfully, Waterville has the expertise to step into the breach, and the willingness and the capacity to do that. How tabling it, opening it up to public discussion, what do we run the risk of in doing that?
Well, I think it's good practice to involve the public anytime. Delegated review, I will tell you that our builders, our contractors, and the people that are developing here in the city of Waterville, they want us to do this yesterday.
Yeah.
I can tell you that because as we met with Central Maine Growth Council, I fully expect that they're going to be here in support of delegated review.
Mm-hmm.
I don't anticipate that this being a concern at all.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to clarify one statement. The Fire Marshal's Office is capable of doing this.
Yeah.
The only question mark is the timeline at which
Correct.
they're doing it.
Yeah.
And we have seen a little bit of a reduction in that timeline, so they're turning projects over, 6 or 8 weeks now. But we can do it much faster.
So down to 2 or 3 weeks turnaround?
We're going to do it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Maybe sooner than that. You take a big project like Lockwood Mills, for example.
Yeah.
That's going to take 2 weeks. There's no doubt about it. But a project like, for example, somebody wants to change a door in a means of egress of an existing facility, they should not have to wait 6 weeks to get an answer from the state fire marshal's office. So, to answer your question, there's no harm in tabling this. None whatsoever. The only portion that Councilor Frankie and I have discussed in the meeting that may be controversial is the imminent danger. And I think that any time that you provide code enforcement or the fire department with a little bit more authority, even though situations absolutely warrant it, I think that could certainly raise some questions from the landlords, and they should absolutely, or from building owners, and they should absolutely have the opportunity to weigh in and ask questions. So we are not in any way, shape, or form trying to bypass a public hearing. We welcome it.
And I should say, Tom, that I have been briefed on this, and I actually am in full support.
Sure.
Of
No, I
this.
just want to understand what the concerns are.
My concern is simply to make sure that the public has a chance to let us know what they think. As we've seen tonight, you never know what the public's going to show up and lay on the table for us.
Sure. I guess I was interested in knowing, is there some particular project that I'm not particularly aware of here that is the primogenitor behind moving this forward at a particular pace, or are we slowing something down that we shouldn't be slowing down? I just want to understand what's going on.
Yeah, no, there isn't any particular project. As Chief Essler had said, he and the department and administration have been working on this over the last 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
So there isn't, but I can second what he has said too about potential developers that I've spoken with directly. When I've mentioned this to them, they are fully supportive of it, and I think it will give Waterville a leg up if it comes to another community that they're looking at developing a project in. This certainly will give us a leg up, and they would choose us, because we all know time is money when it comes to developing properties, right? So
you might have mentioned it. I must not. I don't know if I heard it, but this also affects residential and business and apartments in the city of Waterville, correct?
So we would review 3 units and above if it's new construction.
Okay.
This does not pertain to 1 and 2 family dwellings.
Okay.
And commercial development, as you said.
All right, sounds good.
Has the landlords association or whatever weighed in on the imminent danger clause that you cited?
They have not, and the reason why that we put it in there is it actually used to be a part of our property maintenance ordinance, almost word for word. And because we were doing so many revisions to the public safety ordinance, that was one aspect that Director Bradstreet brought to my attention. He said, look, we deleted this in our property maintenance ordinance. We really need to, we kind of lost our teeth a little bit. And we need to bring this back into the ordinance so that we can make sure that when we walk into a situation where somebody's running a generator in a house and it's filling with carbon monoxide, that we have the ability to say, hey, look, this isn't right. We're going to put a placard on your door and you can't be in there until the issue's resolved. That's not a whole lot to ask, and that's what the language in here. Also, if a structure had a fire in it recently, or a structure was falling down, or there was no presence of life safety features in the building, that would be another circumstance where, you know, we would need to act. And unfortunately, all we can do is, at this point, the fire department can do is just ask people, you know, politely to rectify the situation. And if they tell us to go pound sand, we go pound sand.
Yeah.
And what we're asking for is the ability to placard a building.
So,
Go ahead.
So it is hard to imagine that anyone could object to that. And I just want to point out that we have discussed this before. It's come before the council a few months ago. So it's not brand new. It's been reviewed by the Fire Safety Committee. You know, I don't have a problem voting on it tonight, but I also want to make sure that people don't feel that it's being rushed. So if there's no urgency in passing this, you know, we certainly could wait. But I do think, you know, that the whole idea of it is expediting projects, and so let's not wait too long.
yeah.
I mean, I feel as though that I don't believe, I think I agree. I don't believe that there is going to be opposition in the essence of moving things along, and as if we next week and then we wait 2 weeks, so, and then it's, you know, so I feel as though that we can safely take a vote today, have the public hearing, address anything that needs to happen, and table at that point. And that point, we can address anything that needs to be addressed in that area, and still, if there's no objection, which I don't believe we feel is that there. I mean, I think we don't feel that there's going to be anything. Then at that point, we just move forward. Like, you know, so
That's what I would prefer.
Right.
Personally.
yeah,
Claude's got a motion. Claude got a motion on the table.
right. That's fine.
So can I get all in favor of tabling?
But if we vote on
Go
that,
ahead. I'm
then
sorry. Go
it's
ahead, Claude.
dead. I wanted to ask more.
No, that would just be, I was just going to vote to table.
So the motion on the floor is to table.
Motions is
Yep,
to
and
table.
if not, then you get to vote to keep it open. Then you get to vote again. So if you vote no right now.
Yeah. Then I can ask another question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Patty.
So the motion on the floor is to table. Would you like to call for a vote, Mayor?
All in favor? Yes. Roll call.
Was
It's an
there a
ordinance, right?
second to that motion?
Yes.
Yes.
There was, okay.
There was. McCormick seconded.
Okay.
I want transparency.
Missed
I
that.
don't want them
No.
saying, well, we tried to slip this in. Oh, now we're going to do this.
There's no slip. I
No,
mean,
no.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah.
I don't. There's
Okay.
going
If
to
we
be
do it
one
before the
person
public
in
hearing.
the crowd.
There
that's
always
gonna
is,
say
but
that
Patty's-
very thing.
They're going to say it regardless.
I mean,
Go ahead,
right.
Patty.
This doesn't require a roll call vote, so it can be a show of hands.
Okay.
All those in favor of
tabling?
tabling.
All opposed?
Okay, so
I split the vote.
Gilly, Frankie, and McCormick were tabling. Is that correct? So that's a tie vote. So Mayor,
Right? I
You-
split the vote.
you break the tie, sir.
Yeah, I'm not going to table it. Just move on.
Okay. So now the item is back on the floor to adopt.
I don't have any other substantive questions. One question for my edification. So since there's the application of additional expertise, you know, sort of an enhanced service on the part of your department, is that being appropriately compensated? How is that being compensated for those personnel that are administering those inspections?
So Deputy Frost, when we chose to hire Deputy Fire Chief, part of a major role and responsibility was conducting plans reviews and fire inspections.
So that's part of his purview already?
That is part of his purview.
I
Yep.
got you. Okay.
And I just want to clarify one thing 100%. We are already doing reviews. And we are doing the same review after it comes from the fire marshal's office anyway. Because our ordinances may be different than what the state legislature has adopted for codes. So we're already doing the work. So doing delegated review under the public safety ordinance simply streamlines the process on the end of the developer or the contractor. It doesn't have a significant impact to the Waterville Fire Department. But because we have the expertise to do it already, the training, the certification, the personnel in place, plus our marriage, quote unquote, between the fire department and code enforcement, this sets the city of Waterville way above other municipalities in our ability to streamline this development.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
All in favor?
So the motion on the floor is to adopt, first reading. All in favor?
This is an ordinance.
Correct.
Ordinance require a roll call?
The last reading requires a roll call. The
Okay.
final reading. So yes was Klepak, Green, and
I'm for it. I just
Morris?
wanted to slow it down a little bit to make sure nobody was crying that we tried to do something under the table.
and McCormick, so that's 4 in favor.
No, I think he's down
And Gilly is in favor. Thank you.
5 and 1.
One opposed.
I'm going to vote opposed because I think it's absolutely ridiculous for this council to continue to shove stuff down the public's throat without public hearings.
I feel like you're still gonna have a public hearing. All right. Moving on to Resolution 118, 2023.
Approve funding of the Airport Land Reclaiming Reserve account.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Info?
Yes, so this was uncovered after we were looking at the airport land reclaiming account. Back in January 2022, the council actually approved a resolution to move $32,000 from the general fund into this account. And due to a clerical error in the finance office, that transfer never happened. So those funds were then rolled into the fund balance at the end of the fiscal year of FY22. When we went to look to see what the balance was in that account, that's when it was uncovered. So what I'm asking the council to do is to simply approve this transfer again so that it can correct that error from back then. We can't go back into a closed, audited fiscal year and allow that transfer to happen without further approval from the council.
Can you just
So we are
clarify
fixing a
what
glitch.
Can you clarify what that was?
what land reclaiming actually means?
That was so that account had funds in it from stumpage sales at the airport when the trees were removed in order to clear the flight paths.
I got you.
And then subsequently it's been developed into solar fields.
Yeah.
So the money is used for various things having to do with reclaiming the land.
In this case, the funds would be used to redevelop the trails that were
The funds
wiped
also
out.
could be used, yes, to redevelop the trails that were moved because of, or eliminated, I should say, because of the clearing of the trees. There were extensive trails that were through that section, and those were basically eliminated, and some of the funds would be used to relocate those trails.
Any other questions? Anybody from the public?
No, sir.
All right. All in favor? Moving on to Resolution 119, 2023.
Waive the bid process for an alarm and security system.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Discussion?
So this action would allow the city to waive the bid process for acquiring and installing a fire alarm and security system at the 46 Front Street building. We believe there are unique circumstances for this, and I'll let Chief Essler expand on those. I will note that we will need a resolution, an amendment to the resolution to add the words "and awards a contract for the installation of an alarm and security system to Minuteman Security and Life Safety for $28,995.28. So that would have to be an amendment to that if the council wishes to waive this. But I will let Chief Essler
So moved.
further
I'd like
explain.
to move that amendment.
Second. Yeah.
Second.
I even got a third.
Good evening. If you have
shouldn't we-
specific questions,
Shouldn't we vote on the amendment?
Okay.
Yep. Good. All in favor?
Does everyone understand the amendment? Okay. Those in favor, please raise your hand. And now can we move it as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good, Chief.
thank you. Bill requested the fire department come down just to evaluate the building to determine whether there was a need for a fire alarm system or not. We quickly determined, because of code, it would require a fire alarm system. We get to work with a lot of fire alarm companies throughout the city, and we happened to be meeting with Minuteman Security, and we brought them down to do a quick evaluation of the building. In that process, through the dialogue, we determined that we could cut some costs off in the project if we expanded upon the fire department's existing system, specifically when it came to door access. Because Minuteman has already installed and maintains a door access code system at the fire department. The other reason that we would look to this company is that they've already completed 25 integrations into our current fire alarm system, so they are a reputable company here in Waterville. And then the last piece that, as we continued our dialogue in the security realm, was that they can maintain and install the same camera equipment that's found, or going to be very shortly found, at the fire department and city hall. And city council had already determined that that was a unique item. So in our dialogue, we decided we would either need to write a very descriptive bid documents that was very difficult and very unique because of all the circumstances that kind of aligned, or we could accept this proposal. I've seen a lot of fire alarm work, so has Deputy Frost, across the city. These are extremely reasonable numbers. And then the last thing is, I really think that when we get a city manager here and we get an assistant city manager that can focus on some things, we as a city need to realign some of the services that were provided. And there's no reason that 3 city-owned buildings need to be maintained by 3 different sprinkler contractors, or 3 different fire alarm companies, or 3 different elevator companies. I can go on, but one of the projects that I would like to, take on behalf of the city is ensuring the maintenance of all of the sprinkler and fire alarm systems. And my recommendation at that time would be to go out to bid for one company to maintain and install it all. This is a good company. We've worked with them. There is no benefit to us recommending this one way or the other. We've just seen some cost savings, and it makes the most sense to do this at this point.
And if we go with this system, we get to use the one system. If we go with any other company, we're going to have an additional system or additional box at the fire department.
Let's say company B came in and they sold all the same products. Even the integration into the fire department or police department or into our existing municipal alarm system would still involve this company, because this company is servicing some of the equipment found at the fire department or found at the library or whatnot. So there are some items or some areas in our purchasing ordinance that just simply don't make sense, and this is one of those purchases. And we don't ask to waive the bid process very often, but it just makes sense to do so here.
Mike?
Having said that we don't waive the bid process all that often, but when we do, there have been times in which it's come around and kind of give us a little nibble. So I'm going to ask this question in advance. Have we spoken with Bill Lee? Because I don't hear, I hear that there's a lot of conveniences, right? But it doesn't seem like a unique, like there are other security people, there are other people that maintain these types of things. So the word unique, right? Like I don't get that vibe. So I want to make sure that before we do this, have we spoken with Bill to get his take on this? Because we're going to say, yeah, let's go ahead and do it, because you're right. It does. This says to me makes sense, but it doesn't say unique. You know, and that's the difference in when we go out to bid is we may end up with the same result, but it's how we get and follow the process that makes us look silly sometimes. So I want to make sure that have we done that.
So the city attorney sent an email and basically it said, you need to add that amendment on to make sure that, and it said nothing else about that item.
Okay, so we're
So
good.
he had no objections.
Perfect. Then I'm great. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor Gray.
So, yeah, along those lines, I mean, I think we do need to be careful when we're waiving a bid process, obviously, and we've kind of stepped in it before. So this does seem, if not unique, then very compelling. I just want to make sure I understand your comment about the project that you want to undertake with looking at other systems in the city, because it sounds like, are you saying you would like to go to a system like this where there's one vendor servicing all of one type of service? Because that concerns me a little bit. So could you just say more about that?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have thrown that in as an item of confusion. The point is we have several fire alarm systems throughout every municipal building. And for example, City Hall is maintained by R.B. Allen. The fire department is maintained by Minuteman. The library is maintained by Minuteman. The police department is maintained by Minuteman. Quarry Road is maintained by Seacoast Security. Mm-hmm. So the point I'm trying to say is I think we would get a lower cost and more efficient work if we put all that together and said we have this amount of work and we sent it out to bid, whether it be every couple of years, for contractors to bid on, so that when I have an issue with my fire alarm system or Bill has an issue with his fire alarm system, that we know it's a one-stop shop to get that issue fixed. And the integration between all of the buildings here would be streamlined. And a good example of that is a camera system. You know, you can buy a camera system from Walmart, but that doesn't mean that the police department can view that camera system, which makes sense. So the cameras at City Hall, the cameras at Hatta Falls, the cameras at the fire department are all unique because they're all the same system that can be viewed by our dispatchers. We would not want to go outside of that. It would not make practical sense to do so. So moving forward, I think putting them all together and going out to bid could result in a cost savings for our taxpayers.
Okay, I mean, yeah, that would allay my concern a little bit, which is that we seem to be grandfathering Minuteman, right? You know.
I want to be very clear. We have zero skin in the game here.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just telling the council it's a reasonable quote, and the work that they can perform will integrate into current systems, which will again save us money in the long run. Mm-hmm. Whether Minuteman does the work or another company is your call. If you go out to bid, we will happily write a very descriptive bid on what we expect, and I'm willing to take a gamble and say it will cost more money.
Okay, but what I'm hearing is that you think that going forward, it's worth it to do a review every, say, 5 to 7 years, make sure that we have the most competitive package?
I would do less than that. I would put it out to bid every couple years. That would be my recommendation. Of course, Again, I want to be very clear. Bill doesn't have the time right now to pick off these, small items. And this is a back burner project for me. Looking at it for all these years, saying what we're doing just simply doesn't make sense. So once we get some, a city manager in that can take a look at the grand aspect, we get Bill freed up on some of the work that he can do, we can work together to get that project done.
Just to follow up with that a little bit, which really, this is a side conversation to the main topic here, but I'll give a perfect example. So the fire alarm maintenance at City Hall, and I haven't talked to Sean about this. This is the first time I've heard his thoughts about this type of thing. We had to have some maintenance done on the fire alarm system, which we routinely have to have done, whether it's being inspected or whatnot. And I was talking with the head custodian at City Hall, and I said, well, who does the work here? And he told me what Sean had said is a different company than Minuteman. And I said, okay. And I said, who does it at the police department? And he told me it was a different company. And I said, why is that? That doesn't make any sense. So what Sean is saying basically is that we have these service contracts with various companies in different buildings that the city owns. They should be bundled together so that we have a package price that then is bid on every so often. He's right that I don't have, it's actually on my list to address down the road. Same thing with elevator inspections. It's another one. We have more than one elevator. Why shouldn't we have the same company doing that? It probably gets us a better price in the long run. And there are other things like that we can bundle together that are service type contracts. The sprinkler system inspections, that's another one. All of our buildings have sprinkler systems, so let's bundle that together in the future and put that into an RFP and get a better price. And then then we know what company to call. Whatever building that we're in has a problem on whatever system it is.
I mean, to me, that is, close to unique. I mean, you don't want to be figuring out, who to call and which machine, equipment's going to speak to the other. So, yeah.
But
I do like the idea of knowing that down the road we're going to take a look at this again.
Oh, absolutely.
And so.
But this is for the
I'm in
installation
favor.
of the system.
Okay.
This is
Right,
different than the.
installation.
Well, I'm reluctant to do a no bid. It doesn't sound to me like it's all that unique. The question I have is how long would the bid process run if we did it according to Hoyle?
And that's the other issue here, and is one of those areas that the council can waive the bid process is timeliness. So we have a limited window to make the building ready for city council chambers to be able to be occupied. We know that Minuteman can basically have this done within 30 days. If we were to run a bid process, we're talking probably a month before the council could act on, that bid that it came in. So, we're then a month behind, and then I don't know if it's 30 days then, if it's 45 days, or if it's 60 days. So that could delay the move into the council chambers, which is another concern.
And would you refresh my memory? When do we take occupancy?
Well, we're allowed to be in the building now to begin work, but October 1st was the target date because our lease here will end the end of September. So we basically have the rest of this month and then August and September to have the work done. And
So
of course,
we actually do have time to do the bid process.
it would be tight because there's other work that has to be done in conjunction with, the installation of the alarm systems as well. It can't simply just go in tomorrow and put those in. So.
Well, I believe the fire chief is right that we'll end up with the same, with a good bid from this company. But I still think we should go through the bid process.
Go ahead.
reinvent Ward 6. Still opposed to 46 Front Street. That's just going to be a recurring theme. But I do want to say one of the chief complaints that I had and that several people had at the meeting for 46 Front Street was transparency. And I would just like to really commend the chief for writing you go into that agenda packet, you read it, it was very transparent what he was looking for, what he was asking for, why he's asking for this waiver of a bid. I'm like, this is good. We need more of this because this is what our complaint was a lack of transparency, and this was very, very transparent. I am on the actual vote, pretty neutral, so that's all.
Mike, tell you we went back and asked the schools. We went back and asked the schools.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I agree, and we've run it through our city solicitor without any concern that this was not. So I'm comfortable in taking this, this vote tonight. And,
All right. All in favor then? Opposed? Okay. Res 1/20/2023.
Designating the polling place for the referendum election and municipal election to be held on November 7, 2023.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? To Thomas?
Yeah.
Wanna give us
Yeah, I'm happy to
Please,
quick rundown and then we
give
can,
an explanation. We've been somewhat homeless in our voting, as we have as the city council chambers over the last few years. Since the American Legion sold several years ago, we were here for 16 years voting. We've moved around a bit. So we went to Thomas College for a few years, but then COVID hit and we were forced to move because there was some concern about a liability they could take on during COVID. So we came to the Elm, and then we ended up going to the junior high, which has been they've been very welcoming and accommodating. They've been supportive in the past of allowing the students to have a remote learning day on the day that we're there for voting, which has been great. But, now that they're realizing that remote learning isn't ideal for the students, and so they're not willing to support a remote learning day for the students on election day. And I'm very concerned about the safety of the students coming and going on election day. It's very busy with voting, and I can't imagine buses and parents coming in and out during the course of the day. So given that fact, I reached out again to Thomas College to see whether they now might be willing to host us again. They were very accommodating and willing to do so. It's a fantastic location. It's very large. It's accessible. There's plenty of parking. It's a well-known venue. So I'm really thrilled to be going back there. So council's approval isn't required, but I like to have the buy-in from the council that you're aware of what the options are and that you support the location. So I'd ask for your support.
all right. Any other questions for Patty? Roll call, Patty. Or all in favor?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Let's go.